Hey everybody, it's what is it? It's March 18th. It's Friday, and I do several of these videos before the APUSH exam. I did some last year. First video is going to be about just the exam itself. I talked about it in class, but I had this video. You don't have to watch this video or listen to me. You can go to Adam Norris, Joe's, Heimlich's History. It does not matter. We kind of say the same things. I make them just as another source, not so much to get on your nerves and see my fat face again, or listen to my voice going over and over about what you need to do to get prepared for the APUSH test. Just remember, you should not have any kind of automatic negative thoughts, what I call the ants, as I say. You're not going to be graded by what you perform on this test. Reminder again, test is May 6th. It's just see that if you can score a 3 or above, you probably will receive college credit for most of the colleges that you're applying to on here, like a history credit on there. It's to save you money. I don't judge you if you take the test and you don't do as well. It's all about the DEA, not what you're thinking about with the Drug Enforcement Agency. It's your demeanor, your effort, and your attitude. And that's what I care most about with students. If those three things there about what did you do all during the year, how did you prepare yourself to try to pass this test, how was your demeanor, how was your effort, and how was your attitude. That's the only thing a person can ask for, a teacher can ask for in this case. So I'm not really worried about let's again make sure that that somehow that you didn't do your best on a test, that you're going to disappoint me. You're not going to disappoint me if you got the DEA, all right? And make sure you don't get very nervous. What I'm going to do, so my fat face here, go through the PowerPoint, say some of the things I said the last time we had class about the kind of format of the test. Very important, the format of the test, to know kind of the rules, the setup, what everything is going to look like before you take the test. Just like your ACT, know what to expect, no surprises really, and you know what you need to do. And so that really is the important first step. That's why I'm making just a video just to kind of echo that if one or two people want to listen in again or use this as a reference. So we're gonna go down to the PowerPoint. Hey guys, what's going on? So now I'm down here in the small little box here like that, and you can hear me hopefully very clear. And all I'm going to do, try to be as short as possible, take about the next 10 to 12 minutes and talk about the exam again. And hopefully, I say it over and over again. A lot of these things will just be involuntary as far as remembering. But I want it to be that way because I still think this is important besides the overall content. Test is 4 things. It's a content test. This is stuff that we've been working on since the beginning of the year, whether you're beginning the motivations for exploration, now to where we're at presently right now about the nifty 50s and the presidency of Ike Eisenhower. What are some of those content things that we need to know about Eisenhower doctrine versus Truman doctrine? What do we need to know about the Massachusetts Bay Colony versus Jamestown Colony? Very specific factual information. It's a comprehension test, meaning can you read documents, whether it be secondary sources, whether it be primary sources, whether it's really just a political cartoon, a picture, or a graph, and can you interpret that material? It's also an intuition test. Are you generally clever? Do you have some intuition? What it might be, probably from what you've studied and what you know, looks like the right answer. Or when you're writing, you feel like, I feel like I have enough specific factual information that I've answered the question to get earned credit. It's a preparedness test. Are you knowledgeable about the test format? This is the focus of the first two sessions of review. Actually, let me make it the first session of review. So I think it's just on here. So I'll quickly edit it. This is the focus of the first session of review. And know where I'm going to share this with you too, for whether you want to see this again and follow along with me while I'm narrating it here. So bulk of the test. is period 3 to period 8. That doesn't mean too much to you, because unless you know something significant about those dates. 1754, we're really talking about the beginning of the French and Indian War here. So, I know you might say like 1756, but you're talking about the kind of preparations, kind of the duel for North America, ending with the presidency of Jimmy Carter, the election year of 1980. And we haven't gotten to that point, but we'll eventually get there, probably about the middle of April at this time. You say, Mr. Price, I'm worried about periods 1. I'm worried about the beginning of period 2 and period 9. We will go over that, but it is not the bulk of that. So if you know your Andrew Jackson, you know your Gilded Age, you know your George Washington, you know your Constitution of the United States, you know your Progressive Era, you know your 1920s, you know your FDR. That's really the heart of the test here. That's what's going to be tested on. Again, 55 multiple choice. All right, you have 55 multiple choice, and we're going to go over the multiple choice. I guess we're going over the 2 sections today. I guess the SAQ and the multiple choice really quickly in a way on there. This one you will answer in pencils. The thing that you're upset about is because, you do one part in pencil and another part in black and blue pen. Yes, that's the way it is. There are rules to this, just like if any test, game that you're playing. And these are the rules that you have to abide by, okay? Section 2 of, and actually, still in section 1 here is part B. You're talking about the short answer question here, and that's in blue or black pen. This is going to be, after you do this part, these 2 parts, that's 60% of your test. 60% of your test, and really kind of details you probably passed the test before you even start getting to the essays. We will get to the essays more in class, and I'll, have some accompanying videos, but not every video on that. All right, multiple choice portion, 55 questions to be answered. Only 49 questions will count. I know this makes you mad because they have about, 6 test questions, or kind of like, questions they're kind of, sampling out here. And I know those are the ones that you got correct, and if they would have graded that, you would have passed the test. Every time standardized testing or testing like this does this, so they don't grade everything. But the good news is you're not penalized for anything that's wrong. And you only have 4 choices here. 4 choices. So not 5 choices, not 6 choices, not like the old format, the old test where they had 5 choices, or not like my quizzes on here. So the multiple choice is not in chronological order, right? Yeah, number 1, unlike what we've been studying at, we begin like in the Age of Exploration or Native American civilizations. It could start in World War II, and the last question could end up referring to like Native American civilization. So don't get all surprised and shocked that like you're starting with the 1920s or you're starting with the Northwest Territory. Don't be shocked by that. All questions will have a stimulus, picture, prompt, a series of 2 to 5 questions based upon that prompt. And I'll talk a little bit more about this. Question will normally not ask for specific informational facts or person or year. Ask for specific information, I should say. Fact or person or year, meaning when was Pearl Harbor attacked, by the Japanese? There's nothing going to be that easy, on there. So, and I think that you're not going to be, that's not going to be anything big. Here's the caveat and warning or attention here. The primary source, the reading sometimes is unrelated to the questions. A lot of times you're going to hear me say stimulus, okay, like that, stimulus-based questions. Stimulus is always that reading, that document, that picture, that graph, that political cartoon on there. That's what stimulus means. All right. So to get the jargon of this, of what's going on here, so don't get confused. Stimulus versus document versus, pictures and cartoons. It's all meaning the same thing. Meaning that, like some of the quiz questions, you will have a cartoon or some kind of document to read, and you have to answer to that as it relates to the document. But with the APUSH test, probably maybe about 50% of them just giving you some background for the critical period between, while the Articles of Confederation was going on to the ratification of the Constitution, giving you some context of the time, maybe with some, Shays Rebellion document or cartoon or some kind of primary source. So hopefully you understand that that you cannot just read the stimulus and get the answer. So what you should do, my recommendations to you, you can, again, this is, follow along with me, what we've always been doing. Anytime you get to document, cartoon, maybe even a graph, title, author, what's the source? You see Thomas Jefferson, it's probably about his presidency, or probably more than anything the Declaration of Independence, because he's the primary author. So that should give you a head spinning, give you some clue what's going on in there. So do that first, skim the passage. I would not just go ahead and read it 2 or 3 times over before you get to the questions. Skim it. Look at the title. Title may be The Jungle by Upton Sinclair. You're like, oh, I kind of already know probably what this is going to be about in here. Then read the questions and see if the passages need to be reread. You skimmed over what The Jungle. It was talking about the conditions of the meatpacking industry. You kind of got that. Questions about really Theodore Roosevelt and the responses to the progressive era during this time. So it's not directly related to the stimulus, prompt. So you can kind of answer the questions because you've given the background what time period this is in here. Now, here's the thing is, I want to warn you, when you get cartoons, photographs, or just a graph itself or some kind of data or chart, the questions under there are going to refer to that cartoon, that picture. That is a kind of a direct response. So you need to really look into that. Again, if you see a question that says in the above passage, or what was Harriet Beecher Stowe referring to when she's talking about the kind of, the problems with slave trading and, runaway slaves and the kind of people that were tracking them down in the Fugitive Slave Act, you need to go back and reread that again. All right. So don't get all surprised if I was looking for the answer in the passage, didn't really give me the answer in the passage. That may not be true for about half the questions, but it's just giving you context of the time. Please understand that as you're going along taking your test, that maybe I can answer some of these. Do not skip the prompt. Oh, I'm just going to go to the questions. Don't do that. At least first look at the source, look at the title, skim it, kind of maybe do a quick read first, and you may have to go back and reread that because wait a minute, the questions are really referring to the passage, and I didn't understand this thing about what the Puritans were talking about here, John Winthrop. So let me go back and reread that. All right, please understand this. All right, good. You got that. I want to be careful. Be careful skipping and going back. You can lose your place. Annotate, underline, write all over in the book you need to. I do this for anytime I have to take a test that's required for teachers, anytime I need to do something. I underline, I kind of make me focus a little bit better. Some keywords, maybe something I need. Maybe that doesn't work for you. Maybe you're just good at, focusing in on certain words. But I would definitely recommend writing, make sure I understand it says, explain the difference, which one of the following is true, which one of the following does not support the passage above, does not support. Things like that, as you know, when taking my quizzes, can really, trip you up, and, you have the knowledge, but you didn't read the question correctly on here. And go back to the passage. There's some key words in there. The key words may be manifest destiny. That's read by, in the passage, what somebody is talking about. And that's very key. And it kind of clues your mind in to get your knowledge up. All right. So don't try to get everything right. Don't spend 10 minutes on one kind of passage and worrying about getting all the correct answers on there, because the next passage, that passage happens to be on the era of good feelings. The next passage is really about something that you really know, is World War One, and you you don't spend enough time on the one that you know the most about. So think about that. So don't change your answers unless you have this all epiphany that comes to your mind. Oh, number 7 that just right above me or something like that, or the page before, I understand now. All right. So I know for sure what the answer is. Let me check and look about that. And I know for sure I marked it the wrong answer. Just leave it. 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 And remember, don't be afraid to guess. There is no penalty whatsoever. When you get that 5-minute warning, you have 7 questions left. Start skimming and bubbling in. Maybe you just, take some random guesses at some, like that. You can't get to some. Maybe read the stimulus and say, what looks like the right answer? Use your intuition at this point. There is no penalty for wrong answers. So probably you have a 25% chance to get it correct. So you want to gain points. You can't gain points by leaving it blank. So please do that. Please do that. All right. Now, you don't get a break yet. You get a short answer section. We've been doing some of these already. There'll be 3 questions, each with its own stimulus, and a total of 40 minutes on here. So you take your time. You're going to have more than enough time, about 13 minutes about for each one. Maybe you'll spend a little bit more time on one over the other. They give you a little booklet, and I'll show you what the sheets even look like. Maybe number 1 is confusing to you. Go to to your last choices there, to 3 or 4. You get to choose on the last one. Go to number 2. Just calm down. And also, too, each one of them have parts, either 2 to 3 parts. You do not have to get all 3 parts correct to get some credit. So maybe you know something about A, you know something about C, but you don't know anything about what they're asking in B. You try to answer B, your best shot, but you definitely knew A and C. That's fine. Don't get all, cynical and frustrated that I do not know what these 2 documents are talking about, so I'm just going to leave it blank. Do not do that. Try your best to take a stab at it and come up with the best thing that you can remember, or something that's maybe related to it in this way. Question 1 is required, includes 1 or 2 secondary sources, usually a different kind of interpretation of World War II, why the Americans get into World War II, why the Americans, stay so isolated and neutral. So there's 2 secondary sources, probably from some historians, about, looking at the beginnings of America's entry into World War II. Just an example. It's from 1754 to 1980. Again, that's always the bulk of everything in this history. So, and here's what the thing is, and can I emphasize enough? This is not about right versus wrong answers. It's about what's valid and invalid. There will be probably, if I told you, the causes of the Civil War, the kind of what you would say about what are the kind of results of Reconstruction, There are a lot of answers as long as you can support your answers. You can answer the question on there, you give an example, something that's pretty specific, and then you explain it or expand upon it. You'll see all kinds of acronyms about, like, ACE, AP, APE, about, again, answer the question, cite examples, then expand on here. It's all about doing those things there. I answer the question what it's asking me for. I am not giving them a lot of fluff. I'm directly answering the question, was the Berlin airlift successful? You say the Berlin airlift was very successful for President Truman. Then because it ended in 1949, began in 1940, ended in 1949, when Stalin lifted the blockade. And then you expand upon this. This is your significance or your explanation. This looks like a big win for the President Truman and the United States, and maybe the Western world or the non-communist world, because Stalin seemingly backed down in this particular, Cold War crisis here, and which is happened about 3 years after World War II is over. That's the answer. You get the credit for that part A. So don't write a paragraph, don't write a thesis statement, don't write an essay, don't write bullet points, don't write sentence fragments. You want complete sentences and complex sentences, meaning that maybe it's a very long sentence with some contractions, some transition words, in there. It's okay. All right. So, do not take anything from the primary source or the secondary sources in question 1 and repeat or copy a whole sentence or phrase, just like what you're going to do in your DBQ. Do not do that. You're supposed to be doing an analysis, not a summary. Do not do that. Do not take a whole sentence, a majority of what they're saying, and put it down as your answer. You may use a key word like the tariff of abominations, a phrase like that. You may use something like, this was the era of good feelings, like this. And you may do that, but again, do not copy, any kind of significant portions of the secondary source onto your answer. Don't do that. All right, good. And this is an example right here. If you look on here, this is secondary. It's a different interpretation about the frontier and what defined America. And those are your 3 examples like that. I'm not, but you can take a close look what that looks like. And then again, your booklet will look like this, and it has a big question 1 there, and that's what you do. Question 2 is required, includes 1 primary source and focus on historical developments processes between the years 1754 and 1980. You're thinking of a scale of comparison or causation. It's a primary source, usually a cartoon or a graph type or a picture in here. So, actually, I should put picture in here. A picture like that. So, but can be a written document from the time period, like an excerpt from Thomas Paine's Common Sense on here. So you know what? See, so AP is already giving you what to expect on these short answer questions. Oh, I got the first one. Looks like 2 different interpretations from historians or maybe some observers from journalists in the newspaper. Question 2, probably a picture, photograph, Jacob Riis on here. A cartoon from about Thomas Nast, or it's Frederick Douglass, once again from his autobiography about his slave narratives. So you're going to actually again make an answer response to the prompt with that, and it's going to be 2 to 3 parts again on here. I happen to have used the one with the Teddy Roosevelt in here about the, again, reading Upton Sinclair's book and kind of reacting to what was going on in the public after that book came out and published, and people were reacting to it and wanted some kind of responses to, to make the meat industry more sanitary and healthy in this way. And that's what you do. And you know what it'd be too. Now, third one here, you got two choices here from, two time periods what you want to do. Probably the time period probably will not make the decision. It's probably which one you think you can answer best. And maybe both of them you don't like, but still, which one has more of an advantage for you to answer? Is it question 4 over question 3? Because question 4 deals with the things I know about when in regards to the presidency of George Washington versus what's going on, as far as the like Spanish American War and American imperialism for question 4. So, hey, I'm going to use question 3, or maybe you want to use question 4 on that way. And it has 3 parts. There's no stimulus. There's no sources. It's going to be something a lot briefly explain, briefly compare and contrast, in this, or some kind of like, what are some of the, it usually goes along with what are the results in here or something to that nature. And it's going to look like this. Now, notice that at the top right, you need to fill in which one you eventually chose. Was it question 3 or 4? Now, this is important. I know you might not think this is important. Is it like just as much as really answer the question, ACE? The example, answers, like, again, answer the question, cite an example, explain or expand upon your, what your answer were. So you will fill in the top right which one you chose, and it's very important for sorting purposes for grading. Now, what will happen is, students will do this, and none of my students should do this. All right, they're going to leave it blank, and then somebody's going to have to figure out which one you did choose. It just makes things more difficult, and you're somewhat maybe put in the pile to see last because you did not mark which one you chose. And let me tell you, you do not want to be in that last pile of the day or the unsorted pile because somebody did not choose one, because they're a little bit fed up. They still have more to go, more to grade, more to sort out, to look at and examine. So, don't put the bad taste in the grader's mouth. Don't put the bad taste in people organizing and sorting out your answers. You want to make it easy for you. That's why also, too, Mr. Price, am I counted off if I don't label my answers in here A, B, or C, or A and B? No, you will not. But it makes it easier for the grader, particularly if there's maybe one that you did not answer. Maybe you answered it out of order. You thought you could answer A and C, and probably you're worried about B. Then after answering A and C, you really think that you had the correct answer for B. You might put B after C on there. But the grader sees that you put, this is where your answer for B is. You have to guide people who don't know you at all. It's blind. You're just a person who took the test somewhere in the world or some geographical area of the country. That's the only thing they would know. And they need to find your answer, because there are multiple answers to each of these questions. They want to see if you support it and if it's valid. I'm going to stop there and not get to the essay part because it's already too long. And most of you probably not listening to this at this point. But And again, there's multiple videos that's going to say the same thing, but it's very important to understand this first part of the test and format. After these two sections, you get a 10-minute break on here. So, and then you dive into the essays that we're going to be going into in the last quarter here into history, and then we're going to really work on those and see what we can do about this on here. So remember, this is pen that you're writing in. Yes, you can have like, oh yeah, I have erasable ink. Look, the reason why they ask for pen is so they can see it clearly. And some of you say, oh, I'm surprised, I don't know how to write in cursive. That's fine. All right. Just print your answers. Like again, you might have to write, learn how to print fast, but that's okay as well. Long as it's legible, long as they can read it. You want to use some of your best handwriting at this time. Okay. If you have questions, you know what to do. Maybe you've not even gotten this far. Maybe you just listened to me. That's fine too. Whatever it is, like again, everything to understand is I want everybody to, have the best chance at passing this test. That's why I do these like little videos. Okay? All right.